Today's Tidbit is sponsored by Berkshire Hathaway, Kennedy Realty, Bullock First, and Dabbs Hickman Hill and Cannon. I can say with pride that Everett, Gary, and Billy are all very dear boyfriends of mine for many, many years. One of my favorite things is when the camellias begin to bloom in our yard. The camellia is the true aristocrat among flowers and has a presence and personality that's something to behold. I prefer the older varieties, and we're going to talk about a few of them today. We need to begin with the history of this plant. Duh, we are the Historical Society. Camellias are native to the Orient, to Japan, to China, and the countries that the Chinese used to describe as south of heaven. This is the Alba plena. It's one of the oldest camellias in cultivation and has a very slow growth. It's mentioned in Chinese manuscripts as far back as the Sung Dynasty, when it was known as Teipai, Great White. It was imported in 1792 from China to England by a Captain Connor of the British East India Company. It is porcelain white. Pink Perfection is probably the most widely identified camellia in the United States. It was imported from Japan to Sacramento, California in 1875. It has a small blossom of the purest pink and it's perfectly formed. The camellia is an evergreen shrub and its leaves and leaf buds can be used to make tea. Yes, our common camellia is very close kin to the plant used to give us our tea. Interesting that countries like China and England, where their residents hold tea parties as part of their religion, are where the camellia is most cherished. There are over 30,000 cultivars of camellias. They were introduced to Europe in the late 1700s and had made their way to Australia and New Zealand by 1840. They came to the United States around 1840 also. This is Hermé. It originated in Japan in 1859 and came to the U.S. in 1875. The stamens are irregularly scattered. I love the pink and the white, with scattered dark pink streaks that the bloom produces. One of the oldest camellia collections in the world is within driving distance of Statesboro. Right outside of Charleston, South Carolina, Magnolia Plantation and Gardens has existed since the Drayton family founded it in 1676. It's the oldest public garden in America since 1870. Would you believe there are over 20,000 camellias in this garden that bloom from mid-November until late April? I'd like to go here in 2022. Let me know if you're up for a trip. In this garden are over 1,000 cultivars of japonica, more than any garden in America. Magnolia Garden is the last large-scale romantic garden left in the United States. The debutante originated at Magnolia Plantation and Gardens. This is my first camellia to bloom every year. I usually have a couple of blooms for the dining room table on Christmas Day. Rubra, or Julia Drayton, is a very old camellia. Here's a picture of the one out of our garden. What is called a rubra was bred in Belgium by Mr. Mathot around 1847. In the United States, Julia Drayton, a Magnolia Gardens cultivar that came about in 1908, was incorrectly called the rubra. Also, this camellia is called Purple Dawn. It has several names. It is the only camellia that I have that has a true purple color present in its bloom. While the rose is the queen of flowers, the camellia is certainly known as the queen of the winter flowers. It has evergreen leaves and a natural, shapely habitat. Please don't prune a camellia with electric trimmers in the shape of a Christmas tree. I've seen this being done by our local young landscape companies that have no idea of the value of a mature camellia bush. They can be upwards of $1,000. The camellia you probably have in your yard is the japonica, and that's what we've been talking about today, and will continue to. Dr. Tinsley reminds me of a pink rose. It first bloomed in 1955 in McElhaney's Jungle Gardens in Louisiana. It was named and registered by Mrs. G. J. Tinsley of Hammond, Louisiana. Sylvia Harville and I visited this wonderful garden several years ago. It's located on Avery Island, about 150 miles from New Orleans. The garden was begun by Ned McElhaney, born in 1872, on the island. His father invented Tabasco hot sauce, and the family still owns Avery Island. I highly recommend a tour of the McElhaney Tabasco factory, followed by a stroll through their magnificent jungle garden. Ned was an Arctic explorer, a naturalist, and conservationist. The garden hangs deep with Spanish moss and contains over 450 varieties of camellias. If you love cooking and gardening, Avery Island needs to be on your bucket list. Here is Bernice Bodie. It's a camellia that I grafted with the aid of master gardener James Bland. We did this about 25 years ago, and you can see that it was grafted on a peppermint seedling that is also very beautiful. James Bland was the City of Statesboro engineer for many years, and he's the reason why our East Side Cemetery is so well laid out and landscaped. This camellia, the Bernice Bodie, originated in 1946 at a ranch in Southern California. It was named after the wife of the Los Angeles Daily News publisher, who was Manchester Bodie. It was a favorite of my late dear friend and internationally renowned master gardener Ryan Gainey of Atlanta and Lexington, Georgia. I still can't believe we lost Ryan several years ago in a house fire in Lexington. We're going to stop here with our first tidbit on camellias. Next time, we'll talk about them in part 2. Bye.